Construction administration.
Yes.
Talk to me a little. You've referenced it a couple of times. Tell me a little bit more about it.
So construction administration is really the piece where as the home is being built or the project is being built, typically from an interior designer's perspective, we get involved as the rough-ins are going in for the plumbing. So all the piping is going in, and we're making sure that the faucet is mounted on, if it's a wall-mounted faucet, at the correct height. As the electrical's going in, we're confirming on site that the electrical boxes are where we need them and as per the plans, because we have gone through in the construction documents and determined this is where we need the outlets, this is where we want the phone, this is where we need the TV, and we've dimensioned them. But you've got to make sure that happens in the field, because it doesn't always. It does most of the time, but again, it's just a quick on-site observation, walking through those type of details. Sometimes you run into issues in construction administration where architect has their set of drawings, we have our set of drawings, and for whatever reason, they've made a decision in the field that they needed to add more support to a wall to support the beam or the roof or this outside wall or whatever, and all of a sudden you've got a assembly of wood in a wall where we had a whole series of outlets. Then you've got to relocate those. So those type of incidences happen. And it's important to be involved in those decisions so that it meets with the criteria that was established through the construction documents.
So who makes the changes if they're different?
Great question. So in-field changes, when that happens, typically it's an architect. On this job, from an interior finish standpoint and detailing of like outlets and plumbing, any of the items that we specified, that's how we basically delineate it. Anything that we specified, we would do the changes and provide those changes to the contractor for field applicability. Yeah. If it was something that was the architecture, then the architect made the change. And that was really the easiest, is whose document did it affect, then they're responsible for making the change. And that's how this one unfolded. It will vary on all projects though.
Does the client visit during this phase of the process?
So yes, the client did. So they visited, I would say, about quarterly. So we were up there monthly at the construction meetings, and those were the construction team meetings. So that was us, architect, contractor, and his super, and then some usually specific subs depending on what stage of the project we were in. And then the client came in about quarterly, and sometimes the client would come in on their own and just kind of walk through the house if they were in town. So.
Evaluation afterwards.
At the very end of the project, you know, the nicest thing is to be able to do a walkthrough with the client when everything's done. Just because it allows them to have an opportunity to understand how to use it, because there may be some specifics around whether it's the furniture or the fixed finishes or the cabinetry details. This client was a joy though, because she wanted to be there. And now that was just a complete oxymoron, because most of the time you don't want your client there when you're installing, because you're going to always have problems. You're going to have a problem getting a piece of furniture in because it ended up being bigger, and that's something you have to think about when you're doing furniture CDs. How are you going to get that piece in through the door? The pool table was a perfect example.
Oh my goodness.
Was their pool table. They bought it, and I knew it was going to be a difficult installation, and of course we were installing in February, and the site was so steep they ended up having to take it down around and come in through the downstairs doors, which is what we originally envisioned, but we didn't envision it in February in snowmass. Whole different story, but you know, ideally you always want to kind of do the install on your own, get everything perfect, and then have them walk in. But Bonnie was so wonderful, and she really wanted to be there while we were there. It was kind of like a celebration. She wanted to be setting up the kitchens and the bathrooms while we were doing all the furniture, and it was really fun.
Part of her memory of
totally.
creating a home.
Yeah, and I think that was the difference for her, is that she was really creating that home. Whereas when we've done some other secondary homes, that's not always necessarily the case. It's kind of we go in, get it ready, and then they come and stay.
Kind of the reveal.
Yeah, exactly. The unveiling, the topping off party. So.
Yeah.
Well.
Any changes that you made during the evaluation, during the install and after? I mean, did you?
Yes, well, and not so much with finishes, because with finishes we were up there every month, you know, and that was kind of ongoing. Actually, there was one with finishes that I'll touch on, and then I'll come back to the furniture. Through a process of budget, trying to bring the numbers down, the client had asked the contractor to please look at where could we cut some numbers. And they were not involving us in that conversation. So they were looking at the millwork package, and we had an inlay fillet detail in our walnut doors. And what we wanted to do was do a medium walnut, but then keep the fillet a natural walnut. Well, that created more labor because it's a 2 or 3 step finish process, because you can't just come in and stain the door. You have to stain the door, then you route it. You could route it first, stain the whole door, and then you inlay the fillet of the natural walnut for that subtle contrast. So that labor piece of it ended up being a little bit more than the client wanted to spend. So bless my contractor's heart, he's so excited. So he's telling us at a job site meeting, so this is what happened, and Steve wanted to save some money, so we're going to use Wenge as the fillet in the FSC certified walnut doors. And I wish Rachel was here because she could tell it much better, but I guess the look on my face was like, yeah. I said, first of all, you cannot use Wenge. Wenge is an endangered species. It is a tropical wood. It is not sustainably harvested. And you know, Rachel wouldn't have known that, and they hadn't run it by her prior either. And they all just got that look on their face like, oh my gosh, we just made a really big mistake. Now, fortunately, nothing had been done yet. So what was great about this team is everything was always run by each other. So that was a really good example where had they not run that by me, then all of a sudden, I mean, would it have been a disaster? Heavens no. But they would have been using a species of wood that would not have fit within our objective of being a green, sustainable home.
And totally against the philosophy
yes,
of the
yeah,
joint project.
Yeah. So the contractor loves telling that story too. So luckily there was a good sense of humor about it. Another example in the field was Bonnie, we wanted to add a little niche in the master bathroom, and we were trying to figure out the door swing, but the stairs that ended up going in over the bathroom up to Steve's office ended up creating a lower ceiling, so the door didn't work. And so we had you know, the door was already made, so we had to figure out, okay, how are we going to make this work? And typically you want to open the door into the bathroom. We decided it's okay. We have the space out here. We're just going to open the door out here. And I mean, little things like that, but it's not little, because then you have to look at, originally the door swing was going to be on the right-hand side so the door could fold up against the wall, but because of the stairs, it no longer fit. So then we had to switch the swing to the left-hand side so the door could open up against the vanity. It also made the most natural sense to walk into the bathroom. So those are the kind of changes that you make in the field that a client wouldn't necessarily see.
And you can't predict.
And you cannot predict, yeah. From a standpoint of furniture, we had a couple issues, and it's usually with newer manufacturers that we're not as familiar with. So our big redwood, we actually had it was a naturally felled redwood tree that we used for the slab table in the dining room, because we needed something that was long and wide and sturdy. And so this piece came in, and in the photographs that we had, you could see that the live edge of the wood was a lighter tone, and then as you got towards the center, you got the darker redwood. Well, when it was delivered, it was just downright hideous. No, it wasn't the reverse, but the colors did not work in the space. So we made a conscious decision, and Bonnie was there. Bonnie was totally fine with it. And I said, Bonnie, this is not what we envisioned. I said, I want to bring somebody in and have him, we'll need to strip it and just refinish it so that he can put some stain on there to even out the color of striations in the wood. And wood does that. Wood is actually, because it's a living, breathing product, if I think of issues that I've had in the field, it's always around wood. It's either that, you know, I remember on another project we did, 36 condominium units, we had this ash wood, and it got delivered to the site, and it was green. It wasn't like the sample.
Way it took the stain was
totally different, and
you couldn't anticipate.
So we had to deal with it. Woods are tough. You got to make sure that you really are getting samples that are the correct samples of what the end product is actually going to be. So that was the main change that we made, and I think there was one custom light fixture that, yeah, it was the dining room one that we wanted it low enough so that it would be intimate at the dining room table, but I'm tall and Steve and Bonnie are both tall, and I could see into the top of the fixture. So we ended up doing some lens covers, having some custom lens covers made. And those are the kind of things that, with such a custom client like this, we didn't charge them for that, neither our time nor the actual product material to make those corrections, because we just felt like that's not what we had envisioned. It was important to see that all the way through. So there were a few things like that.
Absorbed things like
that. We absorbed things like that.
So, why do you love design? This is a tremendous amount of work.
That is a really good question. Why do I love design? Well, you know, Gosh, I love it because I like to serve people. I like to make them happy and create environments that reflect them is really, I think, what it comes down to.
It's an emotional thing.
Yeah, it is.
But it's also a very fulfilling thing for you.
Yeah, it really is. And it is, it's about the people. You know, and as I went out on my own, and leaving Associates 3 was a very hard decision because I had grown up there and I loved it. But I also knew that I was at a point in my life that if I didn't go out and do something on my own, I would never do it. If I didn't do it then, I would never leave, and I would just grow old and stay and be there, you know, a lifer as we call them. And I wanted to try some things on my own. And now the work that I'm doing, it's still about the people. And I'm doing such diverse work, and whether it's I'm consulting with a manufacturer on their product and getting it third-party certified, to working with a client who has multiple chemical sensitivities, and there's already a designer on the project and an architect, and I'm vetting those materials. But to me, it's really important. It's an honor to be able to be brought into somebody's life.